Unsung, unknown, unappreciated, and unsung. This is the story of Kevin Foster. When I arrived in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, I was met by a guy named James Thomas. James Thomas was a radio DJ down there, one of the bigger names in the radio industry in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. He met me there. He says, "Hey man, Kevin, my name's James, blah blah." We sat down. He was a tall guy, afro, had a lot of gold chains on, back fit for the time. He was a real cool guy. Sat down at the table, talked. He had a soda. Obviously, he didn't drink or anything either. But we started discussing what was going to be happening, and he explained to me about a company he had called Zeppy Productions. He was trying to branch out into other things besides just doing the DJing, because that's the kind of guy James always has been. He always was going to venture out into other things. It wasn't just about one thing for him, and that's probably where I learned a lot of it from. I learned a lot more from him than you can imagine. But he explained to me about the Zeppy Productions, and I went up to he owned an ice cream parlor and a record shop up in Delray Beach, Florida. I went up there, met the people that he wanted me to be involved with, a group called Southern Comfort, another group called Jonas and Company. I ended up playing with both of them off and on. It was one of those things where I had to learn a lot more than I thought I did, because remember, I'm playing in the churches. I was basically a gospel musician at the time. Edwin Hawkins, Walter Hawkins, Andre Crouch, those kind of things. That's what I knew. But because I knew those things, I can also hear very well what was going on, and then I would fit in where I needed to fit in. We were playing songs like Stevie Wonder. I listened to it one time and had to figure out what we were going to be doing. They liked me, but they knew I didn't really fit or really know exactly what the structures were at the time for listening to the different things. If they had horn lines and different things like that, I could fit all of that in there because I knew what I was hearing. So it worked for us. Didn't work so much for Jonas and Company as much later on, because he got rid of me. Me and Leonard both were working with them. They ended up firing both of us from the group back then. But it was understandable because I just wasn't into it. What they were doing, I just didn't too much care for. And they got a lot of instruments for us. I had stacks, Rhodes with the suitcase Rhodes with a DC clav on the top, D6 clav, the Korg organ double decker on the side. Lucky we had roadies in those days because we had to move all that stuff. But we opened up for people like KC and the Sunshine Band, a few others. We did the whole strip. Penrod's back then. We did a lot of other different clubs. But that experience was another level for me. But I was more into finding out about the radio stations and how they were operating. So we paid a lot of attention. I paid a lot of attention to what James was doing. The main thing, he used to come home talking about, "Man, y'all didn't come by the studio today. Vanity was there. Vanity 6 was there." They were like, "What?" Man, he never told us they were going to be there. We would have went. But when I say we, I mean because I had brought my boy Leonard down, and I ended up bringing Thomas Tellerferro down to Florida with me. Because James asked me if I knew any other people that were interested in doing some of that stuff. I told him, yeah, I got a bass player, a guy that's an engineer. Leonard was something of everything. He could figure out anything. If he needed to know something, he would learn it. I used to call him one of those geeky geniuses, but he could figure out whatever. And he was one of the best bass players that I worked with at the time. Tom, of course, was a guitar player. So I ended up bringing both of those guys down, and Tom ended up going back to Jersey after a while. That was after we ended up out of there. But Zeppy Productions, fell apart. They some things happened. I don't remember exactly, but I know it was something to do with courts. It fell apart. It wasn't anything to do with James T. It was some other people that were running the company. I remember meeting so many people because of that company. Janet Jackson, Lenny Williams, and a few other people that I can't remember their names right now. Esther Roll actually called me in. We went to the office one day, and she was sitting there, and she goes, "Ooh, who was that?" Because I looked like a kid. So she was like, "Oh, come here and sit on my lap." So I did that because what do I know? I didn't. And today I probably could sue her for sexual harassment. Nah, I'm just playing. She was from Pompano, so that was the area that she was hanging out with different people. I remember doing a photo shoot with her. I have no idea where those pictures are. I don't even know if I ever got a copy of those pictures. But there was a whole lot involved. The photo shoots. Now, one thing Zeppy didn't do, we never got to the studio with them. We did a lot of the practice halls and a lot of the things. I liked the fact that they basically got us whatever we needed to keep moving, and we were doing that. But then the question came up, so what you gonna do, Kev? You staying? 2 weeks into Fort Lauderdale, I was never to see Patterson, New Jersey as a home again. I never lived there after that. I stayed in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. That was the place for me, man. And there was so much involved with that city, so much involved with music and so many things that went on that you can't imagine. I also, after Zeppy Productions fell apart and that group fired us, and I had to go to work for Sears Automotive at the time. Sears Automotive, I worked in an area where you had to do things on commission, and it just didn't work out for me. I couldn't sell. They want you to sell 2 tires, sell 2 tires. But our people used to come up in there all the time, and they come right to me. I just need 1 tire, man. I'm gonna sell them what they need. If you sell a battery, sell the Co-Pros. You gotta do it, man. I just wasn't into none of that stuff, so I got fired from that too. And I ended up working, and they let me go into the tuxedo department at Sears. Tuxedo department was great because that was all I did was write songs all day long. It was real boring in there. But before I left Sears Automotive, I met a young man by the name of James Palmer. James Palmer would end up being a very important person to me later because I ended up marrying his sister. I hooked up with his brother Gary Palmer. They were musicians and stuff in their family. Their father was a musician as well. But I met James Palmer sitting there waiting for an interview for Sears, and there's commotion going on. Some guy comes upstairs, he got this patch in his eye, and they're moving and rushing him into the office. That was James Palmer. I said, what happened to him? Oh, a battery blew up in his face. I said, battery? You mean in the automotive department? They said, yeah. I like, oh, the place I'm getting ready to go to work at. But anyway, they ended up messing up his eye. He never sued. He just wasn't into that kind of thing. He didn't do it. But he was the guy that came to me and said, hey Kev, I heard you're a musician, man. I got there's a company out of Miami that they're looking for a band, some guys to work with the studio. I said, studio? He said, yeah, man. So if you want to come check it out, come on down. So that was the start of me working with music specialists.